Welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. My name's Cath Little. I've got some stories and songs for you from the Celtic tradition. Stories and songs about transformation, emancipation, and there's probably some conversations there too. I'm from my house to your house. We're in Cardiff. Well, I'm in Cardiff at the moment, so Croeso I chi gyd, welcome to everyone. The first story I want to tell you is a very old story, and I was very excited when I first heard it. The first person who told me it was Robin Williamson, the wonderful bard, and it is in the Triod Ynys Prydain, the triads of the island of Britain. And it's about an old mother pig, and it's about the very beginning of time. Once upon a time, in the very, very beginning, in the long ago times, there was an old mother pig. She was so old and so beautiful, and so round, like the moon. Her belly was full of life. So old and so blessed, we called her Hen Wen. Hen Wen, old mother, old grandmother pig, old grandmother sow, came swimming out of the sea in the beginning of days. And her belly was full. So she looked for a place to give birth to her child. She came ashore in southeast Wales, not far from Newport. And when she'd found a good safe place to give birth to her babies, well, she pushed and she pushed and she pushed, and she gave birth to a tiny grain of wheat. And then she pushed and pushed and pushed some more, and she gave birth to a honeybee. And the place where old mother pig, old Hen Wen, gave birth is called my Swaneth, because from that day on we had wheat to make our bread and honey to put on it. Well, old Hen Wen, she was tired after her labours, so she went back out to sea to cool off, and she swam and she swam. There was still life in her belly, so she looked for a safe place on shore again to give birth to the life within her. And this time she came ashore in Shir Benfro in Pembrokeshire, and she found a safe place, and she pushed and she pushed and she pushed, and she gave birth to a grain of barley, and bzzz, another honeybee. The place she gave birth is called my Slon, because with the barley we had beer, and with the honey we had mead. My Slon, the happy place. Old mother, old grandmother sow, she went back out to sea to swim in the cooling waters. But there was still life in her belly, so she came ashore again in the north of the country, a place called Eryri now. And she pushed, when she'd found a safe place, she pushed and she pushed and she pushed, and she gave birth to a little eagle chick, Cedar. And she pushed and she pushed and she gave birth to a little wolf cub. But when the wolf was grown and when the eagle was grown, we killed them. And knowing the future for her children, sadly, her grandmother sow, Hen Wen, returned to the sea to cool off after her hard labours. But there was still one more life within her, longing to be out in the world. So she was heading for Ynys Môn, for Anglesey, but she didn't quite reach it. She got to the black rock, Mindy, and she pushed and she pushed and she pushed, and she gave birth to a cute little kitten. But the kitten grew and grew and grew until it became Monster Cat, Cath Little, one of the vicious, wild, terrible oppressions of the island of Britain. And that wild cat, Cath Little, child of Henwen, the old mother sow, terrorised the islands for a long, long time, until, so the story says, the coming of Arthur, the Brenin Arthur. As for Henwen, maybe she carried on swimming out to the west, or maybe she sank deep down to the bottom of the sea, duk, 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 and had a long nap, had a long rest. That's the story of Henwen from the triads of the islands of Britain. And I love the stories of the animal ancestors, and I also love the stories of human-animal transformation. And I've got a ballad for you about a woman who got turned into like a sea dragon. It's called the Ballad of Dove Isabel. Her mother died when she was young, causing her to grieve and mourn. Her father married the worst woman ever born. Isabel served her well on hand and feet, but her stepmother loved not she, and she has cursed Dove Isabel and cast her in the salt's green sea. Oh, lie you there, Dove Isabel, and all my sorrows lie with thee. Let all the world do what it will, I'm sure you'll never rescue me. Isabel breathed fire, her hair grew long, her body wound around the tree, her skin of scale, a thinner tail. Now a savage beast seemed she, her fire was strong, her hair so long, she wound 3 times around the tree, and all the people far and near thought a savage beast was she. Now word has come to Kemperwine, in his home across the sea, and he has sailed to Craigie's Crag, and on that savage beast looked he, her fire so strong, her hair so long, she wound 3 times around the tree, and with a shout she gave a shout, oh come here and kiss with me. Here is a royal sword, she cried, I found it in the salt green sea, and if your body it were on, drawn should your blood never be, but if you touch me tail or fin, I swear this sword your death shall be. Owain stepped in, gave her a kiss. The royal sword he brought with him, her fire less strong, her hair less long. Now she wound twice around the tree, and with a twist she gave a shout. Oh, come here and kiss with me, here is a royal ring, she cried. I found it in the salt green sea, and if your body it were on, drawn should your blood never be. But if you touch me tail or fin, I swear this ring your death shall be. Oh, I stepped in, gave her a kiss. The royal ring he brought with him, her fire less strong, her hair less long. Now she wound once around the tree, and with a twist she gave a shout. Oh, come here and kiss with me, here is a royal belt, she cried. I found it in the salt green sea, and if your body it were on, drawn should your blood never be. But if you touch me tail or fin, I swear this belt your death shall be. Owain stepped in, gave her a kiss. The royal belt he brought with him, her fire was out, her hair was short. She stood up tall on her own feet, and smiling was Dove Isabel. And she was well, and she was free, and smiling was Dove Isabel. And she was well, and she was free. Well, there's another story about an animal-human transformation that comes from South Wales. So it goes like this. Once upon a time, a man from Ynys Môn, from the north of the country, fell in love with a woman from the south of the country. And the first thing he noticed about her was the belt she wore around her waist. It was green like the grass, like a velvety, rich grass green, and it all embroidered around the belt with twisting, twirling patterns. It was fascinating, mesmerising. His eyes were drawn to the belt. And the first thing he said was, "Where'd you get that belt from?" And the woman wearing it smiled. And when he looked into her eyes, he thought her eyes were green like the belt. "Got it from my nan," she said. Well, he fell in love with the Woman of Swansea, and it wasn't long before they'd agreed to get married. But the night before their wedding, the Woman of Swansea said, "I will marry you, but you need to make me a promise. Anything. I love you. Anything. After we are married, each year I will leave you twice, once in the summer and once in the winter. And you must promise me never ever to ask me where I'm going, where I've been, or why." Well, the man smiled. "When we are married, you can come and go as you please." So the wedding took place, and they settled down to live together in a little house by the sea. And they were happy. The first time she went away was the beginning of summer, when the blossom is on the hawthorn at Callan Mai, just at that eve of summer. She was gone for 7 days and 7 nights, and he missed her terribly, but was so glad to see her when she returned, and asked nothing and kept the promise. The second time she went away was Callan Gaeaf, at the very beginning of winter, and the nights were cold, long and dark, and he was lonely. When she came home, he said, "Surely we should have no secrets from one another, my darling." But all she said was, "You made me a promise." So he said no more, but he worried and he fretted. And he went home to visit his mum, and he asked his mum what he could do, which maybe wasn't the best thing to do, because his mother was curious about this strange daughter-in-law. So his mother told him, "Follow her. Next time she goes, follow her. See where she's going. Then you'll know." The next time was the very beginning of summer, and the woman left the house. The man followed, at a distance. She walked into the greenwood, all full of birds' song at this time of year, and he followed at a distance. She walked through the greenwood until she came to a clearing. He hid behind a tree and watched her. And in the clearing there was a pool, a deep pool of water. And he watched and waited as the woman took off that belt, that green belt that she always wore. And she said some words he couldn't understand, and she threw the belt on the floor, and then she vanished. Well, he couldn't believe his eyes. He ran out from his hiding place, but she was nowhere to be seen. She's completely disappeared. The belt was on the floor. But the belt, well, it was beginning to move and to fatten and to shiver and quiver. A snake. He was scared of snakes, so he picked up a stick and he threw it at the snake, but the snake disappeared down beneath the ground. Well, he went home and waited, scared. When eventually she came home, as soon as she came through the door, he said, "What happened in the woods? Where did you go?" She looked at him with sorrow. "Why did you follow me? Now all our happiness is gone." She spoke the truth. From that day on, they lived unhappily together. And the man, he missed her. He missed the closeness they'd had. And he thought of how he could get her back, get that happiness back. And one night when she was sleeping, he took the green belt next to the bed where she lay. And he took it downstairs and he made sure the fire was going. And when the flames were high and the fire was blazing, he threw the belt in and watched the sparks fly and waited until the belt was reduced to ash. Then the man went upstairs and into the bedroom. But his wife had gone. She was no longer there. That's the story. I wanted to tell you one story to finish, and this is a story about our animal ancestors. But like Henwen, the old mother sow, there are animals here who've been here from the beginning, guardian animals of this land, these lands, these islands. And the story goes like this. amser maith yn ôl. Once upon a time, Olwen loved Culhwch, and Culhwch loved Olwen, so that was good. But Olwen's father did not want them to marry because Olwen's father was Ysbyddaden Pen Cawr, the chief, the meanest, the nastiest, the biggest, the worst of all the giants of the land. He did not want his daughter to marry because when she married, his life would end. So when Culhwch came to see him to ask for his agreement in the wedding, he set Culhwch 49 impossible tasks. 49. If I were to tell you all of them, we'd be here for a long, long time. I'm going to tell you about one of the impossible tasks, and it was this one. The giant said to Culhwch, before you can marry my daughter, you need to find Mabon. And Culhwch said, as Olwen had told him to, easy. Easy for me. But it wasn't that easy. Luckily, Culhwch had help. He had the help of Olwen, but he also had help from his cousin. His cousin happened to be a Brenin Arthur, King Arthur. So he went to King Arthur and he asked for his help. He went to King Arthur's court at Caerleon on the wide river Usk. And Arthur said, never heard of Mabon. But there are animals here in this land who have been here since the beginning, and they know everything. They will know where Mabon is. And to find the oldest animals, Arthur looked around a round table, and he chose 2 to go on this quest. The first he chose was Kai. Kai because he was always successful no matter what he attempted. And then he also chose Gurhir because Gurhir could speak the language of every living creature. So Kai and Gurhir, they walked the land, this land, searching for the oldest animals. They came one day to the blackbird of Kilgurry. And Gurhir could speak the language of the blackbird. So he asked him, oh, do you know or have you heard of Mabon Modron's son? The baby who was taken from his mother when time had just begun. O dych chi'n nabod, o dych chi wedi clywed o Mabon Mab Modron, the baby who was taken from his mother when time had just begun. The old blackbird lifted up his old head and said, I've been here a long time. When I first came here, there was an iron anvil. No blacksmiths worked on it except for myself. Every morning I sharpened my beak against it. Every evening I brushed my wing against it. All the time I've been here, the anvil has worn to the size of a nut. Look how small it is. All that time I have never heard of Mabon. But as you've come from Arthur, I'll help you. There's someone even older than me. I'll take you to him. The blackbird spread his wings, and the men followed and walked the land, this land. The blackbird took them to the woods and stopped before an old trunk of an oak tree, and by the oak sat the mighty stag, heavy 100-antlered stag. And Gurhir could speak the language of the stag. So he asked him, O dych chi'n nabod, o dych chi wedi clywed o Mabon Mab Modron, the baby who was taken from his mother when time had just begun. The old stag lifted up his heavy antlered head and said, I've been here a long time. When I first came to this place, there were no trees, but one acorn. I watched the acorn grow into a sapling, grow into a mighty oak. The acorn grew into a mighty oak, and the oak and me, we'd been good friends for a long time. And now my old friend is falling back into Mam Dayar, Mother Earth, Mother of us all. Look, all that was left of the oak was a reddened stump. That's how long I've been here, but in all that time I have never heard of Modron. But as you've come from Arthur, I will help you. There's someone older than me. I'll take you to her. And the stag walked the land, and the men followed. And he took them to a dark valley, and there, in the hollow of a tree all twisted around with ivy, was the owl. And Goria could speak the language of Goody Hill. Odych chi'n nabod, odych chi wedi clywed o Fabon Mab Modron, the baby who was taken from his mother when time had just begun. Old Owl, she opened one eye and she said, I've been here a long time. I remember when people came from across the sea and cut down every single tree in the valley. But I watched them all grow back again. And then some people came from across the other sea and cut down every tree. I watched them all grow back again. I've seen 3 woods grow in this valley. That's how long I've been here, but I've never heard of Mab Modron. But as you've come from Arthur, I will help you. There's someone even older than me. I'll take you to him. And Owl, she left her hollow tree and swiftly, silently, she flew over the woods. And the men followed. And she took them up into a mountainous, rocky place. And there by a boulder stood the eagle, Erir. And Goria could speak the language of eagle too. And he asked him, Odych chi'n nabod, odych chi wedi clywed o Fabon Mab Modron, the baby who was taken from his mother when time had just begun. Old Eagle lifted up his head and said, I've been here a long time. When I first came to this place, I could stand on the top of the mountain and peck at the stars at night. But all the time I've been here, the mountain has worn away, and to this boulder that you see. That's how long I've been here. I never heard of Mabon. But there is someone even older than me. I'll tell you how I met him. Once, when I was flying over Aberhavren, the River Severn, I spotted in the shallows a salmon. Thinking it would make a tasty treat, I swooped down, sunk my talons into the back of the fish, but the fish, being mighty, pulled me under the waters of the Severn. And it was all I could do to get away. And when I escaped, I called on all the eagle host to make war on the salmon. But the salmon, being wise, called on all the salmon host to make peace on the eagle, knowing that peace is better than war. He is the oldest of us all. I'll take you to him. Eagle began to soar, and the men watched his progress in the sky and followed where he led. And he came down to the shores of Llynllyw, and there in the shallows of the lake waters was the salmon. And Gorir, he could speak the language of salmon too. Oh, do you know or have you heard of Mabon Mab Modron, the baby who was taken from his mother when time had just begun? Well, you'd be very glad to hear the salmon lifted up his salmon head and said, yes, I know Mabon. I tell you what I know. When I travel up the River Severn, I come to a bend in the river near Cath Little, the shining castle, and there's a house there, and in that house a prison, I am sure, because in that prison a prisoner. I hear his sounds and cries of calling for help. I think it is Mabon, unjustly imprisoned there. Jump on my back, boys, and I'll take you there. Well, the salmon was so mighty that 2 men of the house of Arthur could fit easily on his shoulders. And off they went, up the River Severn. Whoosh. So they got to the bend in the river not far from Caerloyw, from the shining castle now known as Gloucester. And then they heard it. Sounds of suffering. And Kai called out, "Who is lamenting in that house of stone?" And the answer came back, "Mabon ydw." Kai, who hated injustice of any kind, broke down the prison walls and carried out poor suffering Mabon, all skin and suffering bone, and carried him all the way back to Caerleon, to the house of Arthur. And at the house of Arthur there lived the lady Gwenhwyvar, and she had a little pot of ointment, healing ointment, and she rubbed some into his head, his heart, his belly and his feet. And before long, Mabon was well again, found again, safe and sound again. Mabon was found thanks to Kai and Gurhir, and healed thanks to Gwenhwyvar. But he was found as well thanks, of course, to the oldest animals of this land, and now you know who they are. The blackbird, the stag, the owl, the eagle, and the salmon. The oldest of them all is the wise old salmon. Well, those are my stories for you today. Thank you for listening. Stay well, and lots of love to you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just been listening to the most magnificent storyteller, and just like if you come into a pub or a bar, if you happen to be in America, and there's no door charge, but there's a tip jar, or there's a hat, we'd really appreciate it, because our tellers, they've got no way to earn at the moment. We'd really appreciate it if you could reach into your pocket and you could drop a little something into the hat. Thank you. And to do that, you have to go to the website, World Storytelling Cafe.